and welcome to my Week 8 Team Builder and Battle video for the NPL. This week I'm up against Jolt of the Token Minorities. A link to that channel will be in the description. I will very occasionally upload to that channel as well, so check it out. I've been hyping up this game for the better part of the season now. Before the season even started, I was saying, hey, the game I'm looking forward to most is Week 8 versus Jolt, because while it might seem a bit odd, I don't know if it's reciprocated, but I like to feel like I have a friendly rivalry with him, just because of the fact that we were in each other's division last year. That's pretty much it, and we were battling it out for who made playoffs last year in our division as a result of it. And that's just kind of carried forward from last year and just stuff like that. So I've been putting myself under a fair amount of pressure to get this match and win this match in particular, because I, like trying to win, and the fact that I've spent as long as I have trying to hype up this match makes it one that I really want to do well in. And yeah, a quick note about the Team Builder. I think it was pretty known, but just in case it isn't, all of my Team Builders are done after the battle is actually done, just because I'm always tinkering with the teams, and the previous times I've done Team Builders before the battle, I've had to re-record it because just before the battle I've been changing EV spreads, changing moves, changing sets, changing items, changing mons even. So yeah, there's one very notable mistake on the team building level that I'll have to go into, but yeah, that's just gonna happen. Anyway, Jolt's team is Megalopony, Latias, Azumarill, Nidoking, Metagross, Ferrothorn, Mandibuzz, Electros, Mismagius, Gastrodon, and Talonflame, with his 3 Z-move mons being Latias, Metagross, and Talonflame. Ugh, that was a bit of a mouthful. Now, jeez, this is not an easy matchup for me. The only thing that has got a good matchup is Scarf Darmanitan, because his 2 water types are not very likely to be brought against me, just because, well, I mean, Azumarill kind of is likely, but I do have Xurkitree, I do have Kartana, and both of them can deal with his water types pretty well, just in general. And with how offensive my draft is, Azumarill isn't the best of brings against me as well, just because everything on my team, I believe, outspeeds it, aside from... No, literally everything on my team outspeeds it. Maybe Sableye doesn't, but I don't think so. And so, yeah, and Latias, that's not a Darmanitan check, not a Scarf Darmanitan check, no. But everything else, he's kind of got a really, really good check for. I mean, Mandibuzz hard walls some of my Ultra Beasts like Kartana and Buzzwole really, really well. Talonflame in particular actually does amazing versus my team. It beats Kartana, it beats Buzzwole, it can help him deal with Darmanitan and my Mega Altaria. Speaking of Mega Altaria, it does not have a worse matchup this entire season. He's got Nidoking, he's got Metagross, he's got Ferrothorn, and he's got Talonflame, as well as a potential Gastrodon that can check it, and Fake Out double priority from Lopunny. Ugh. Not to mention, stuff like my Latias switch-in. I don't have a Latias switch-in. My only Psychic Resist, or Psychic Immunity rather, is Sableye, which drops to Draco Meteor. So, as much as I've been hyping up this match, it's also a match that I've got a really bad matchup in, and that's unfortunate. Because Jolt is, while he's not the best of players, he's still obviously a very good player, but his strength is the fact that he can prep so well that it's basically pointless of trying to counter prep him, because he will beat you on the prep front. You've got to beat him on the playing front. And when you're handing him such a huge advantage, as my draft seems to, in the prep front, in the front that he is the strongest at, it's not a very wise decision on my part, let's say. So, yeah, what the fuck just happened? My screen just went black. Anyway, He's got a good matchup against me, aside from the Darmanitan. So my Darmanitan is coming this week. It is Choice Scarf with U-Turn, Flare Blitz, Rock Slide, and Fire Punch. U-Turn, Flare Blitz, Rock Slide, that gives me pretty much the coverage that I need against his team. Obviously I don't hit the Gastrodon, but if Gastrodon is coming, when I have Kartana, I have Xurkitree, I have a Buzzwole that can set up on it, I have Alolan Ninetales which could potentially set up stuff like Freeze Dry on it, I've got things like Kyurem which can hard wall it. I don't think it's coming. And so everything else on his team is hit at least neutrally, and so as a result I really wanted double fire coverage, because the game could easily come down to, can Darmanitan fire off more hits, or is it going to die to recoil and then priority from Mega Lopunny, for example. Now, if Darmanitan got a move like Seed Bomb or something that would actually hit the Azumarill and the Gastrodon, I would definitely go for it, but it doesn't get anything good in terms of coverage to hit those mons with anyway, so the ability to do things like KO a Ferrothorn without taking massive damage from recoil from Flare Blitz as well as his Iron Barbs, it's just very much appreciated. Now, I'm heavily actually expecting a Scarf Nidoking this week. It deals with basically every setup Altaria that I could potentially bring, and not only does it deal with them, it can also outspeed a lot of my team, and I don't really have good specially defensive answers for things like Nidoking. So as a result, I am just barely speed creeping a max speed Nidoking with my Scarf Darmanitan, in case he is in fact Scarf Nidoking. Now, this is one I honestly regret bringing. I brought Altaria for Latias. Now, this is the closest thing that I have to a Latias switch-in on my entire roster, but it probably should not have come, and if it did come, I should have gotten with a more specially defensive set, with no agility, but perhaps Dragon Stab, so that I could hit everything on his team at least neutrally. And that way, with the Spadef, I could also take hits from the Latias without actually just dying, which would have been nice, to be quite honest. It would have been very, very nice to not die to Latias. Yeah, Hyper Voice Fire Blast gives me really, really good coverage versus most of his team, although obviously it does not hit the Nidoking. Agility is potential way of setting up, and Roost is Roost because Roost is Roost and Roost is nice. Now, this struggles with a lot of his team. It struggles with the Nidoking, it struggles with the Metagross if it's Assault Vest, it struggles with the Ferrothorn if it's Occo Berry, and it struggles with the Talonflame just in general. But I was originally going to run a Cotton Guard set this week, because I knew that DD Cotton Guard Altaria would it would be able to beat every check that he has that was not called Nidoking. But a couple of hours before the game, I found out that it was possible that he knew that I was going to bring Cotton Guard, just because someone I was talking to and prepping with accidentally said and called, "Damn that something Cotton," and then stopped when he realized that Jolt was in the call. I talked with Jolt after the game. He didn't actually hear that at all, so it was all fine and good. But the fact that that was a potential meant that I just didn't want to bring it and didn't want to risk it, because yeah, and it's not like it was doing anything in my mocks anyway, because every mock that I faced, Nidoking came and it was able to deal with Altaria pretty well. But I did want that to try and set up on the Ferrothorn, set up maybe on the Metagross, although obviously a Z-move Metagross would just kill me anyway. And yeah, that's basically what I wanted the Altaria to do in my mocks, but it didn't work, so I went with this set. I didn't actually try out this set before the game. If I had, I would have gone with the more specially defensive set like I mentioned, but I can't change that now. So after Altaria comes the Buzzwole. Now, Buzzwole was always coming this week. Always, because Mega Lopunny is hard-walled by Buzzwole, unless... no, it's just always hard-walled by Buzzwole on the physical side of things. I've gone with a Bulk Up, Power Up Punch, Leech Life's Roost set. This is mainly me not being entirely certain if I'd rather have Sub or Bulk Up. and I ended up choosing Bulk Up's Power Up Punch. Bulk Up Hammer Arm might have been better, or perhaps Sub Focus Punch would have been better, but I did end up deciding to go with Bulk Up Power Up Punch because I did want the ability to set up a Bulk Up in such a way that I could just 1v1 things like Physical Metagross, like well, just basically Physical Metagross, and also things like Ferrothorn would be less annoying, although Sub would still beat Ferrothorn anyway. But this would also mean that I could beat a power-up punching Megalopony because that's kind of a threat. And yeah, it's just all around the most solid set for Buzzwole, I feel, although again, Sub could have been brought. Sub Bulk Up was not a set I was ever going to bring this week. Power Up Punch and Leech Life gives me really good coverage versus his team, only not covering the Metagross, which does not want to switch into a Buzzwole anyway because Buzzwole does get ground type coverage. Leech Life does give me extra recovery as well. It also hits his Latias if he decides to foolishly switch Latias in on a Buzzwole, or if he drops a Draco Meteor, Buzzwole can live. Psy Shock, which I'm more expecting than Psychic, although obviously Psychic could come. I actually feel like Psychic is probably more likely actually because, well, Kartana and Buzzwole both don't. I appreciate Psychic even from -2, but it can live in -2 Psychic, I'm pretty sure, and then just Leech Life the Latias, get back up to a huge amount. It also hits things like the Mandibuzz and the Ferrothorn hard, and Roost is Roost, it's recovery, and it's nice. So up next is my Xurkitree set, and honestly here this Xurkitree set is a bit weird. I decided to go max HP Sub Calm Mind, and I went with Thunderbolt and Hidden Power Ice. Now, Hidden Power Ice is just the best compromise that I have. It hits the Latias, it hits the Nidoking, it kind of hits the Ferrothorn, although not really, and it kind of hits the Gastrodon, although again, not really. But yeah, this was something that I saw as a potential really good option versus him if he decided to try and counter my offense with defense. If you brought a really bulky team with like Ferrothorn, Mandibuzz, Electros, things like that, I could just set up a Sub, Calm Mind, and then even his specially defensive Assault Vest Electros, it's not taking on a Xurkitree that brilliantly, especially if he forgoes physical coverage. Yeah. And I tried out Scarf, but it just ended up not appreciating Nidoking nearly enough. And as a result, it just was seeming more and more like dead weight. I could have gone with a Tail Glow or a Sub Tail Glow set instead, or I could have gone Sugarberry perhaps to try and take advantage of the Nidoking. But this was my response to Mock or 2 that I had, where he just ended up bringing really bulky stuff and just ended up walling me. Now, max HP means that I can live my Sub won't break to things like Ferrothorn's Gyro Ball, or Iron Head if he decided to bring Iron Head for who knows what reason, although Thunder Wave Iron Head is obviously a possible strategy. And 68 in speed is taken to outspeed a Jolly Azumarill, so I can beat a banned Azumarill 1v1, although obviously an Aqua Jet will still do a huge amount to me. But 188 modest special attack. It doesn't hit any particular benchmark, but that's literally as strong as it gets when it's timid as well, I think. Let's just try this because I'll remember these stats anyway. Bring this down, bring this up. No, it's actually a lot more strong than it can get when it's timid. So that's nice. Yeah, but it's just basically a really powerful specially offensive threat, because his only real specially defensive answer for something like this is his Latias. Obviously he's got the offense that can deal with it, but it might not be the best of brings, especially if I can get this in versus something like a weakened Metagross or something that he really doesn't want taking a damage, and then I just sub up and I can wreak havoc. I was considering stuff like Specs and Life Orb this game, but it just didn't seem to be working in my mocks, so this is the set that I ended up going with. And now the error. Nidoqueen. Ice Punch, Stealth Rock, Toxic and Fire Punch. Ice Punch, Fire Punch covers most of his team really well. Stealth Rock is because it's Stealth Rock, and Toxic is very nice to wear down walls, particularly the Mandibuzz, which can be quite annoying to my team. Obviously, it also weakens things like the Electros or the Azumarill or the Talonflame if they wanted to come. Sheer Force just to boost those moves. These EVs, I'm outspeeding a Metagross. I have a particular amount of bulk so that I can live certain combinations of attacks, no specifics, but things like Megalopony's high jump kick into Megalopony's return, it won't kill me. Things like, I'm pretty sure that a non-banded Azumarill can't kill me with Aqua Jet. Things like the Ferrothorn won't be doing as much to me. It's just, it reached a few particular benchmarks when I was calcing. This much attack is so that I will always break the sub of an Ockerberry Metagross with Fire Punch. I don't know why I went with that. And I don't know why I went with max HP, max defense bold, but that's the excuse I think I ended up going with for this much attack. The attack is mostly random, to be quite honest. But let's talk about the obvious mistake. Pitaya Berry. Now, what I thought I brought was Payapa Berry. They are only 2 letters away, but, or is it 3? Berry, because this will be quicker. Oh, god damn it, I need to scroll down. Yeah, there we are. Payapa and Pitaya. Those are fairly similar in my defense. Now, what I meant to bring was Payapa Berry, and that would have meant that I could actually have the Latias come in on me, because it's obvious that I'm the rocker, and then I'm physical, so Ice Punch will do a huge amount to the Latias, because I've only ever run Special Nidoqueen this season, so it's nice as a potential lure for the Latias. But Payapa Berry would mean that I could live a Psyshock, it would mean I could live a Psykick, it would mean that I could even live a Shattered Psy... No, I can't. Never mind. I've just remembered a calc. I don't think I can live a Shattered Psyche, but I can live anything short of a Shattered Psyche. Although Latias is, of course, a Z-move mon, so it might well go for that. But you wouldn't click Shattered Psyche versus Nidoqueen, would you? If you're like Calm Mind, Z, Psychic, Latias, you'd go for Calm Mind, you'd go for normal Psychic, you wouldn't go for Shattered Psyche. So this means I've actually got a really decent check to one of the most annoying things that he's got on his entire team for me. Because I really don't have a good Latias switch in. And yeah, Payapa Berry would have enabled me to check it, or at least lure it in and mean that I can kill it. Whereas now, with Pitaya, if I get down to quarter health, I get a completely useless special attack raise. When I'm jolly as well, so it's not even like I could even make use of that. So that's just a really bad fuck up on my part. And holy shit, this is nearly a 20-minute team builder. I'll put a timestamp at the very beginning of the video to let people know when to skip to. So yeah, that's the Nidoqueen set with the big obvious fuck up. And lastly is Kyurem, which is a bit of a weird spread. 176 speed with a naive nature, not a timid nature, is to outspeed the exact same benchmark as the Darmanitan was, which is to say that I outspeed a timid Scarf Nidoking. And I have 152 attack EVs to reliably kill a Latias after it's taken a round of Stealth Rock damage. Latias is a huge threat to my team, and so having this Dragon Claw is just really nice for the off chance that it can deal with it. I know that I'm foregoing my regular Dragon coverage in terms of Draco Meteor in order to do this, but it is well worth it. And this also powers up my Rock Slide, which, I mean, I might click against Talonflame, which he has brought a lot this season, and he does seem to like it a lot. This stops any potential ST Talonflame shenanigans. Yeah, and this is also a relatively reliable revenge killer for some of his team. For example, things like the Megalopony, after it's been weakened to about 50% or so, Ice Beam will kill, and yeah, it's just generally very nice. Ice Beam, I'm a Kyurem, it's pretty self-evident. Earth Power is my compromise. Again, this week is basically a lot of compromise, and I wanted something that could hit all of Nidoking, Metagross, Ferrothorn, and Gastrodon relatively hard without losing too much momentum. And certain things that hit some of them, like Shadow Ball, it didn't hit things like Nidoking hard enough for me. And Earth Power is just the compromise that I've gone with to try and maximize my coverage with this mon. So yeah, that's the end of the team builder. Now to hop into the battle, and I'll see you all on the other side. Hello everybody. I don't know how many of you have watched the entire team builder or how many of you have just clicked the timestamp at the very beginning, but here is the battle. Against Jolt, who is under the ult Fugacity, he brought Talonflame, Azumarill, Nidoking, Latias, Metagross, and Lopunny. And immediately, my thought is, god damn it, Sableye would have actually worked. Now, for a lot of the prep that I was having, I really wanted to use Calm Mind Sableye with the Calm Mind. I think I was going with Dark Pulse, Will-O-Wisp, and Recover. But Mandibuzz was a near ever-present in my mocks, so I was really expecting it to come, and then it didn't. So yeah, that was annoying, because that would have meant I had a Psychic immunity, and I would have had a general Whisper, which would have been really nice versus his team. It just generally would have been very nice for me. But he did not bring it, and so I didn't bring it either, and we just have to make do with what we have. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, Latias is leading. If Latias isn't leading, something is weird. So I'm just going to lead off with my Darmanitan and try and U-turn out of there, get as much damage off on this as possible. And at this point, looking at this guys, looking at the team that he's brought, there's zero that Xurkitree is going to do. Maybe it checks an Azumarill later on in the game, but frankly, I've got better things that will do the exact same thing here in terms of my Altaria outspeeds the Azumarill, my Kyurem will outspeed it and can get off a hefty chunk with it. So Belly Drum is not a big threat to my team. And Banded I can always deal with, so I decide that Xurkitree is the most useless thing on my team, and just sack it off to 2 Psychics. Now, he proves to be Life Orb Psychic, a good set versus me, and he just destroys my Xurkitree, which dies turn 2, not doing anything in the entire game. Darmanitan comes back in and clicks U-turn versus Azumarill, gets a crit, it's not really that important though, is it? And Nidoqueen comes out. Now here, I was bluffing, and you can see that he went into Latias. I was bluffing that I was the Water Resist Berry, because why else would I hard switch a Nidoqueen into an Azumarill? You already saw my team builder, probably. If you didn't, I fucked up in my team builder. This was meant to be Payapa Berry Nidoqueen, but instead it was Pitaya Berry Nidoqueen. They sound very similar. Can you guys like agree with me on that? It's very, very easy to get them mixed up. And so as a result, when Jolt goes for the Psychic on this turn, I fully expected to live that, and that just completely took me by surprise and then I realized, oh no, I brought the wrong berry, oh dear, and that was really bad. And I'll do something I don't normally do in these things. I'll show the chat there. that's literally when I realized that I had messed up that badly. So, oh dear, now to reposition this in the right way. A little bit more. There we are. Nope, that's a little bit too high. That's better. Now, here, Nidoqueen is dead. And Nidoqueen was something that was going to check, or pseudo-check, this Latias for me, and would have been really nice to have around, but now at least I know that the Latias is dead. He can't switch out here without dying to Stealth Rock, and if he does switch out here, then it's fine for me, and if he stays in here, he just dies to U-turn, so I just click U-turn, and down goes the Altaria. And here I just choose to go out into my Kyurem. Kyurem is relatively good at pressuring most of the rest of his team. He goes out into Lopunny, and I can't OHKO a Lopunny from full no matter what I go for, so here I go out into my designated Lopunny check, which is my Buzzwole, and he goes for the fake out. It does nothing. He sees the leftovers, and here he goes for the hidden power flying, which is an excellent prep on his part, and I just go for power up punch there, and I'm just going to slow it down because this is when the battle actually gets kind of interesting. Now, here I kind of expected him to high jump kick because I have the Curum, which I could switch out into, and I don't think he wants to be doing nothing to that with hidden power flying, but it is a 50-50. I get it wrong, I stay in as he goes for the hidden power, and Buzzwole dies. Now, around about this turn, I realise it is turn 9, I've lost half of my mons, and Jolt is winning this game easily. I need to get my finger out of my fucking ass and actually play Pokemon well. And so, the previous 9 turns, I've played like dog shit, okay? I sacked off my Xurkitree, I sacked off my Nidoqueen, I didn't check and prep, and there I just wasted a Buzzwole that would have been kind of useful in this matchup. So, I'm in a bad situation. But I think I can pull it back still with just the 3 mons I have remaining. Altaria can do anything this season, that's one of the very few things that we've learnt, so I'm still kind of optimistic, but I know that I need to actually start playing well. So here, I think on what he's going to go for, and I calc with various spreads and how much he took from that power up punch, and I realise that Earth Power will almost definitely not kill. It's something like a roll of 32%, so I have to go for Ice Beam in order to kill it. He stays in here and does in fact die, which was very much appreciated. Now, on that turn, the reason I was considering Earth Power was that I was so far behind, I thought that that I might need to make a play to get offensive momentum, because if he hard switched Metagross in on that turn on the Ice Beam, it would have been bad for me, but I felt like the middle ground play of Ice Beaming was still fine, because Earth Powering and Altaria stays in is really, really bad for me, and it's not like Altaria does that much. Not Altaria, I just said that twice. Lopunny stays in, because Altaria kind of beats Lopunny, depending on my spread, and he's already seen the Darmanitan and Scarf, so he's not got a good reason to switch it out there, and so Ice Beam was my best play, as here he does go out into the Metagross. Now, I do not want to take damage with my Darmanitan, because if I take damage with my Darmanitan, my main way of pressuring his Nidoking is dead, and that's just not good. So here, I think he's probably going for a move that will hit Darmanitan, either Earthquake, or he'll go for Zen Headbutt if he has it, and he's not likely to go for Meteor Mash here because the switch out is kind of obvious. But I've not yet Mega'd with Altaria, so Altaria can live a hit, so I hard switch directly into Altaria as he goes for the Life Orb Psychic. Now that's simultaneously good and bad for me. Bad because I've just taken 40% to my Altaria, and that's not good, but also it is good because I know that he's no longer AV, and now Curum can put in more pressure against his team than it previously was, because if Talonflame dies, then Curum can put in a lot of pressure because everything gets 3-hit KO'd by Earth Power after Rocks, and Azumarill is the only one that doesn't get 2-hit KO'd. So that's nice for me. Now here, I've seen that he's just taken the Life Orb damage. I know that he's Life Orb, so that means that he can't really take an Earthquake or a Fire Blast from my Altaria very well. So I don't anticipate him staying in here. As a result, I'm thinking, what's his most likely switch in and what's my best offensive play? Now, he has 2 good switch ins to Altaria. One is the Talonflame, one is the Nidoking, and he could also just stay in and go for a Steel move here. Staying in and going for a Steel move here as I'm forced to Mega, he probably outspeeds me, that's also fine. But Altaria is still needed for me. It's at the range of health where it can still check a Belly Drum Azumarill without any problems, and, well, I mean, it could with a crit, but aside from a crit. I highly doubt that the Metagross would go for a non-Steel move here if it did stay in. So, the play that takes least from a Steel move, covers the Nidoking or the Talonflame switch in, is hard switching on the double into my Darmanitan. He does go out into the Nidoking as I expected, and I do pull the switch into Darmanitan. Now, Darmanitan is really, really, really strong, so I don't anticipate him wanting to stay in here, and I know that I need to actually get damage off with this thing, so my play is definitely going to be Flare Blitzing. Now, Flare Blitzing the Nidoking, it probably would have just killed the Nidoking. Or if not killed, it would have put it in range of pretty much rocks, which is not good for him. Especially given that he still doesn't know my spread, because the damage roll on Altaria, it could be a high roll from Jolly or it could be a low roll from Adamant. And so he doesn't want to risk the Adamant Flare Blitz just nuking his Nidoking. And in comes the Talonflame to take the Flare Blitz to the face. And because I'm Scarf and because of the Gale Wings nerf, I have no qualms about just staying in here and just going for the Flare Blitz again. Now that means that the Talonflame is dead, and that is appreciated because that is his only immunity. Oh, it is immune. Yeah, that's his only immunity to ground moves left, and so Scarf Curum's Earth Power is looking more and more threatening. So the Talonflame goes out, dies, and obviously he's going out into Azumarill here because that's his way of pressuring me now. And here, I cannot sack Darmanitan, it's just stupid if I was. So I have one of two plays here. I can hard switch into Curum or I can hard switch into Altaria. Now, either way, Play Rough from him is a very good play, so it comes down to what I think is least useful on my team, which comes down to it being Altaria. If you Belly Drums, I still cover that with an Altaria switch in. If you Play Roughs, I'm in a bit of a bad position, but at this point I'm still feeling like he might be banded as Azumarill, so if you Play Roughs, I would go hard into Darmanitan again, and then try to win that way. In terms of, I would then go for the Flare Blitz or the Fire Punch and do a massive amount to him there. But as Altaria switches in on the Azumarill, he reveals that he is Resto Chesto. Now at this point I had not considered the Azumarill having any form of recovery at all. That was just the furthest thing from my mind. And so when I saw that I thought, crap. Well, he's not banned, so he can't kill Darmanitan in one hit. And it's going to be a roll to kill the Curum. But now, any damage I do to him, he could potentially rest off, and then this could be really, really annoying for me to try and deal with at the end of the game, especially if he turns out to be Resto Chesto. Although I don't really think that set's likely, because obviously Resto Chesto is not an ideal bring. But yeah, still possible. So here I do the calc, and I think Altaria does something above 50% to the Azumarill with Hyper Voice if I click it. And if he goes into Metagross, he cannot set up a Rock Polish on a Fire Blasting Altaria because he is Life Orb, and the damage he would take from Hyper Voice would put him in range of Fire Blast. And then if he just killed me, I could go out into Darmanitan. And if he went into Nidoking here, I still have my Curum as a switch in. I don't need health on Curum for anything in particular, and I can just go out into that and then pressure him with an Earth Power. As here, I do go for the Hyper Voice Mega Evolving, as he does go out into the Nidoking. Now, I get crucial damage information from this Nidoking, from this Hyper Voice, as it does 32%, and normally I don't calc in games, so this is something that I was doing just because I knew I had to play really well in order to win the game. And from that calcing damage, that's a really bulky Nidoking. I always go for min rolls and max rolls, so I'm assuming that I've done the very, very least that I could do to him and the very, very most that I could do to him. And the very, very least that I could do to him is if he is 188 HP, and in no circumstances is Hyper Voice, is that damage a max roll, unless he goes max HP and a lot of Spadef, which I don't think is very likely at all, because obviously if I'm a DD Altaria, that's not ideal. But I'm on about like 252 HP, on 92 special defense or something like that. I just remember that the lowest was 188, and so I think this probably actually isn't that offensive, because he's Life Orb Nidoking. That's not a sturdy Altaria checker all around. He's probably actually Shuckerberry. Now, without Life Orb, with the Nidoking, I can easily tank any one attack with my Curum that isn't Focus Blast, and if he clicks Focus Blast here, he's just a lord. Can we all agree on that? And so I feel like Curum is my absolute safest switch, as he just gets up his rocks. Now, rocks there, that's actually a really, really good play on his part, because that puts me into range of Arco Jet with things that otherwise are not. And also, I'm obviously switching around like a madman, trying to get as much offensive pressure to win this game as possible. So that's a really good play on his part, so kudos to him. And Nidoking, it needs to stay alive because Altaria is a threat to him. He doesn't yet know how fast I am, and if he just sacks this and I'm fast, then the Metagross doesn't deal with me very well. So here he does preserve it, as I predict him to go out into one of his other 2 Pokemon and thus click Earth Power. Now, if he stayed in there with the Sugar Berry activating, he would have easily lived. It just very easily a live. But after the Sugar Berry was popped, he would not be a reliable switch in to my Mega Altaria. I could go out into Nidoking and I could either Fire Punch or I could just U-turn, predicting him to switch. I think that Fire Punch might well have been the play though, because I imagine that you would probably have been in range to live a U-turn. So Fire Punch would have been the play, and then it would have been a matter of what to go for with Azu. But as you do see, we do crit the Earth Power. Now that is unfortunate for Jolt, because that ended up doing 50%, and otherwise, and you'll see in a moment, that Earth Power does about 30%. So his Azumarill would have currently been just shy of 60%. Another Earth Power would put him in the high 20%. Now that is easily out of range of Stealth Rock. He can always just preserve his Aqua Jet, which now after Rock's damage it will kill my Darmanitan. But because of that crit, he is now in range of Rocks after another Earth Power. I would like to say that crit did not decide the game, because even without the crit, I Earth Power again, he's left at 20-something%. I go out into Altaria, and this is his only way of dealing with a Darmanitan, so he has to preserve it. So I would then double into my Darmanitan. If he went for Aqua Jet that turn, just fair play, he won't. He deserves to win, but he would have then gone out into probably his Nidoking, because that's shown to be his Altaria switching over the course of the game, and then I fire off a Fire Punch, probably kill the Metagross as he switches out into that to try and sack something off. And then he goes out into the Azumarill again. It's at a really low amount of health, and then it's a 50-50 in terms of Aqua Jet or Play Rough as to who wins the game. And even that is slightly in my favour, because in that situation I would probably have gone into Altaria, and it would have been a 90% chance to win the game. Because then, no, it wouldn't have quite been in Rock's range, but it would have put me in a really, really, really solid position to just try and win the game, because Fire Blast would have OHKO'd the Azumarill, and I believe that the Fire Blast would have been killing the Nidoking after 2 rounds of Stealth Rock damage from this range. But obviously that's a 50-50, and if he ends up winning that one, he wins the game as well. So I can't really assume that. And honestly, I feel like I don't even know what I would have done there, because the fact that I've been doubling so much, I feel like he would probably have predicted me to double and gone for the Play Rough. So it's a matter. It was literally a 50-50 without the crit. Although technically 2 50-50s, because I would have had to predict him switching out with the Azu against my Altaria the first time. So technically this changed my chances of winning from 25-75 in terms of winning 2 50-50s to I need to be double crit in order to lose this game. So I get off the Earth Power again and do 30%, send Azumarill into range of Stealth Rock Death, as Play Rough just kills the Kyurem. Assuming he's adamant, that's like a 1 in 16 chance that I don't die, so I'm not complaining about that roll at all. But in terms of, even without that crit, I'd just like to put the maths on this a little bit. Without the crit, I could have gotten the Spadef drop, and he could have also missed. So the actual chances of him being dead to Rocks at this point in time were actually closer to about 25%, not 6%, because Earth Power Spadef drop means that he's in range of Rocks on the first turn, obviously not the second, and Play Rough miss means that I get off 2 Earth Powers rather than 1 after he switches in, and he then just dies. So yeah, it's not like the crit was the only way that the Azumarill was dying in that situation. But now, Azumarill dies to rocks, I can go out into my Mega Altaria and just fire off a Hyper Voice, because there's no need to risk a miss if he tries to stay in with the Azumarill. Fire Blast obviously would have killed it, as I'm going a little bit too fast there. Yeah, no reason to risk the Azumarill staying in, just being sacked off, because if he did so and Fire Blast missed, then I would have lost the game. It does a huge amount to this Nidoking, and you know what, I'm just going to calc and make sure that it would have died to a Fire Blast. Yeah, looking at the damage calc, after 2 rounds of Stealth Rock damage, so like you'd be at 10% here, it is a damage roll. No, I'll show it here. That's the Hyper Voice. You can't even see properly, can you? The Hyper Voice damage is 30 to 35. Fire Blast damage is 40 to 47. Although he did say he had a bit more SPDF investment, but in that case, Hyper Voice was near a max roll. But yeah, if he was 7% weaker than Fire Blast, very, very likely killed. So that just explaining the scenario that I painted in terms of the if Azumarill hadn't gone crit scenario. Whew. So here, his play is hoping that I don't have another Fire-type move other than Flare Blitz, and having Recoil put me in range of Sucker Punch from Nidoking. So I go out into my Darmanitan here, as he then sacks off the Azumarill to the rocks, which is obviously his best play, and he can go out into Metagross here, trying to take the Flare Blitz and get as much damage on me as possible. He actually crits me with Bullet Punch, and that means that after the Azumarill died, because I clicked Fire Punch and I know that I'm capable of OHKOing both the Metagross and the Nidoking at this range, obviously I can kill the Nidoking at 16%. My chances of winning are essentially 97%. He needs to get 2 crits in a row in order to kill me with Bullet Punch and then Sucker Punch. So Bullet Punch does get the first crit, it does 30% to me, sends me to my own 30% as the Metagross dies. And now here, Nidoking comes out and I'm just thinking it'll be poetic justice for him to get the crit, but no, Darmanitan lives the hit barely on 9% and kills with Fire Punch, and that is my game versus Jolt. Yeah, so obviously the crit versus Azumarill mattered. It changed the game from being not very likely for me, in terms of, like, I think it was about 25-75% not factoring in move accuracy, to 97% me winning. And that's just really, really, really unfortunate. It does happen occasionally. There's nothing we can really do about it. But as I think I have tried to make sure it was reflected, it was by no means 100% the deciding factor, and I still did have a decent chance of winning, even if Azumarill stayed alive. And even without the crit, there was still there was actually a 30% chance that it was going to be down to rocks, because I could have actually crit the second Earth Power as well. Not as well, like if he came in on the first Earth Power and it did not crit, the second Earth Power could have also crit. As well as the potential for things like SPDF drops on the first Earth Power and misses with Play Rough. So that's not quite as hacksy of a turn as it first seems, although obviously it is unfortunate, but I would have still had a shot of winning without it, and it would have ended up coming down to the way that we played. So yeah, I'm just trying to... I know that visually the crit looks bad, but I'm trying to make sure that it's known that that wasn't the 100% deciding factor, and as silly as it might seem to say this, I'm actually proud of the way that I played this game. After the first 9 turns and I realised that I was playing like dog shit, I'm actually proud of the fact that I was able to fight back and put myself into a position where I could win, and ended up winning the game. Because given my position at the start of turn 10, that was a terrible proposition. That was something that no one would have put money on at all, and I ended up succeeding at doing just that. So I am actually proud of the fact that I came back to win this game after being so far behind, and Demantan picked up all 5 kills. Yay. Not all 5 kills. It picked up 4 kills last year. No, wait. It didn't kill the Megalopony or the Azumarill. But yep, that is my week 8 done. We are left with a 7-1 record, the second best in the entire NPL, with a 21 differential, and my playoff spot looks pretty likely. I need to lose basically every game for the rest of the season in order to not make the playoffs, so that's not the most likely thing, and I think that we've put ourselves into a decent position to have a good run at the actual championship itself. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry to Jolt for the crit. It was unfortunate, but these things do happen. It is Pokemon, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.